In this video, I'm going to be comparing a couple of mic activators or inline preamps as they are variously known. I have the Cloudlifter CL-1, the Klark Teknik CM-1, and finally the Coda Stealth, or the Coda Audio Technologies Coda Stealth, or Stealth. That was awkward. Coda did send this to me, which was really awesome. They just reached out to me and was like, and asked if I wanted one of these, and I said, sure do, but they didn't really ask me to make a video. But of course I'm going to make one because I thought it would be helpful. About a year ago, thereabouts, I did already a comparison between these two. So this is kind of an update of that video and also just adding in another one for you. But I did buy these two with my own hard-earned credit card dollars, fake money. I really do want to get to the comparison as soon as possible, but just for a little bit of information, if you're completely lost in the weeds and don't know what these things are, you probably do if you're watching this video. They just provide an additional amount of gain so that you can drive or get a loud enough signal from dynamic microphones and also ribbon microphones if you happen to have a ribbon microphone. Dynamics and ribbon microphones don't require any power to work, so you just plug them directly into an audio interface, a mixing board, something like that. You can talk into them, you can play an instrument, whatever, and they will just send the audio right on into the mixer or the interface, and that thing will do its thing, and whatever happens after that. Science. But since they don't require any power, they also are not super sensitive. If you don't use one of these, what you end up having to do, I'm using this little guy here, the Audient Evo 4. It's a 2-input USB interface. It's relatively budget, consumer kind of targeted device. It's about 130 bucks. I think it provides about 50 to 55 dB of gain. I have it cranked all the way up. So this is providing all the gain that this Evo 4 can provide in order to get the level that I'm getting out of the SM7B at the distance that I am, at the level that I'm talking. And it's pretty low. I would say I'm not even really like comfortably in the yellow consistently. I'm kind of peaking in the yellow. My average is probably around -20 to -18 dB, which isn't terrible, but I'm definitely gonna have to raise this volume so you can hear it better. So what these do is provide more gain. So this is 50-ish dB. These will provide about 25 to 28 dB of extra gain. Now what that means is if I were to, add that on top of maxing out the preamp inside the Evo 4, that is just gonna be blowing out your eardrums. It's gonna be way too loud. So what you can do is then turn the gain down on the Evo 4 and therefore lower the noise of the preamps in the Evo 4. So I'm going to be quiet for about 10 seconds. And if you're listening on headphones, you'll probably be able to hear it. You'll be able to hear the noise of the preamps of the Evo 4. The Cloudlifter, they advertise it as being able to provide about 25 dB of gain. I think the Klark Teknik is about the same, although in my experience, it's actually a little bit louder than the Cloudlifter. And then the Coda Stealth, I think they say about 28 dB of gain. Now those numbers are pretty close, and you might not think it makes a big difference, but another thing to know about decibels is that it's a logarithmic scale. And I don't know math at all, but my understanding of a logarithmic scale is that like any increase is like an increase to the power of 10. So that's quite a big difference when you're just talking about 1 to 2 dB of gain. And as we will see, this thing is really loud. Pricing on these things tends to fluctuate, although the Cloudlifter is usually about $150. The Coda Stealth initially released at about $110, but apparently now it's $89.95. I don't know if that's going to be permanent price, but that's what you can find on their website at the time of filming this video. And the Klark Teknik also fluctuates. I got it for $40. I've seen it as low as like $27. And currently, again, at the time of filming this video, it's $35. And just a little word about kind of form factor. These two obviously have this little box-like form factor that has an input and an output. So you're going to need 2 XLR cables for these. The Coda Stealth also has one of these kind of form factors as well, if you prefer that. Internally, I believe, like regardless of the form factor, if you get one that plugs into the back of the microphone versus one that just sits on the desk and needs a couple of XLR cables, I think they'll work the same. In addition to the Coda Stealth, some other options are the Triton Fethead and the SE Dynamite. Klark Teknik also makes one like this called the CT1, and it's the same price as the CM1. Some of these, I think the Triton FET head, you can plug it into the back of the microphone, or you can plug it right into the back of your audio interface. It doesn't really matter. The Coda Stealth, just based on the way it's built, it's kind of thick. It doesn't actually fit into your audio interface, so it's really only going to plug into your microphone. Now you could run 2 XLR cables to this as well if you don't want it on the back of your microphone. But if you are pairing it with a mic that just has the XLR plug on the back, I'll show you how that's going to look. It's definitely going to be kind of a different form than this one. Another thing to keep in mind, because this is kind of a bulky activator, depending on if you are using a boom arm, you might find that it has some clearance issues. It kind of hits against the top of this boom arm here. Kind of wish they'd made this a little bit slimmer. So in this video, really all I'm going to do is just read a little passage, like an open source thing from the internet, and I'm going to plug in various activators, and I'll let you know which one you are listening to. And I'm also going to do the same without an activator and just be kind of swapping back and forth, and you can hear the differences, and then that'll be that. Just another note about how I'm doing this. I'm using the Evo 4 because it has this smart gain feature, which basically just sets the gain appropriately itself and just kind of takes me out of the equation. So that way I just thought it would be, fair. Nightbirds called in the dark chill of the winter woods. Candles burned weak in the narrow windows of the town, and all feared the walking dead. All heard the scratchings and scrapings around their doors and windows after dark. All had seen the earth dug up around the church graveyard, and many a young man had disappeared walking Old Dudley Road at night. Nightbirds called in the dark chill of the winter woods. Candles burned weak in the narrow windows of the town, and all feared the walking dead. All heard the scratchings and scrapings around their doors and windows after dark. All had seen the earth dug up around the church graveyard, and many a young man had disappeared walking Old Dudley Road at night. Nightbirds called in the dark chill of the winter woods. Candles burned weak in the narrow windows of the town, and all feared the walking dead. All heard the scratchings and scrapings around their doors and windows after dark. All had seen the earth dug up around the church graveyard, and many a young man had disappeared walking Old Dudley Road at night. Nightbirds called in the dark chill of the winter woods. Candles burned weak in the narrow windows of the town, and all feared the walking dead. All heard the scratchings and scrapings around their doors and windows after dark. All had seen the earth dug up around the church graveyard, and many a young man had disappeared walking Old Dudley Road at night. Nightbirds called in the dark chill of the winter woods. Candles burned weak in the narrow windows of the town, and all feared the walking dead. All heard the scratchings and scrapings around their doors and windows after dark. All had seen the earth dug up around the church graveyard, and many a young man had disappeared walking Old Dudley Road at night. So now you've had a chance to listen to all 4 configurations. Hopefully that gave you a good indication of how they sound and, what they do essentially. I'm really impressed with the Klark Teknik just based on the price alone. It seems to be right in line with the Cloudlifter in terms of its gain. It's very quiet, maybe the quietest of the 3, and it's by far the cheapest one. The $150 Cloudlifter, is a pretty decent investment. If you throw that on top of the microphone and your audio interface, then the whole thing becomes a lot more than you may have been anticipating, which is where I think the Klark Teknik has just a ton of value. Now the Stealth, on the other hand, is quite a bit different to me. It definitely changes the sound of the microphone. Not only is it the loudest by far, adding just a ton of gain, which is nice, but on the other hand, it didn't seem to really lower the noise floor all that much. You would think that being able to turn the gain down on the preamp in your audio interface to such an extent that you can with this, that it would just drop that noise level, but it seems like it just kind of adds the noise back in. So it didn't seem like there was a big difference once you kind of equalize everything in terms of the noise floor. But it did change the sound. Like it almost sounds like you're adding a compressor utilizing the Coda Stealth. So just, just throwing that out there. You can just sort of decide for yourself what you think about it. I just wanted to give you this comparison. I'll get out of the way. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I always appreciate some feedback, and I appreciate you watching the video, and maybe I'll see you in another one.